All right, I think we are more or less stable. Um, um,
I'll keep
more
an
or
eye on
less.
it, Esteban.
Yes,
So don't worry about it.
yes. Why don't we start? How's everyone doing?
I'm doing great today. Hope everyone's having a good Wednesday so far.
All right. So, Brooke, Ryan, what do you have for us today?
Yeah, so let's I could share my screen. Yes, let me share my screen. So can you all see Article 10 there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So we took a further review of our proposal. And I think we've made one change here that we want to highlight. And it's in the interest of providing more equity to our lowest paid GAs. The previous one-time payment levels provided employees with sort of different size payments that we didn't think really aligned well with the stipend tiers. So for example, you could be making $250 difference in two different tiers. And then the one-time payment would be, more than the $250 difference that the two salary tiers were making. And we were struggling with that. So instead of doing that, we are giving $1,000 to any GA that makes equal to or less than 18,500. And this one-time payment is obviously in addition to the 3% increase to stipends, the increase to the minimum from 16,000 to 17,000, and the fee payments, some of which we've already made, and obviously we'll continue to make in the summer and the fall. UF thinks that this is a fair compensation package. I don't know that I want to restate my whole little spiel about
Ryan, this is still a pay cut.
But let me just finish.
Yes.
That we stated 2 bargaining sessions ago, that the university will continue to work on ways to invest in GAs in a manner that's sustainable given increased costs and fiscal limitations. However, at this stage on June 8th, 5 to 6 months after these raises, I think both parties wanted them to go into effect. Our biggest concern is that we are up against the changing of the fiscal year. We don't want any operational complications related to a new fiscal year to jeopardize our ability to make the stipend increase retroactive. We know our GAs have been waiting since January 1 to get a raise. And this minimum stipend increase. We know that the cost of living is what it is, and so for them to wait, in addition to having this cost of living increase, is just been that much more difficult for them. And so we're at a point here where we don't want to provide the GAs with an ultimatum that they should, should they turn this down, it might result in no stipend increase. We don't want there to be an impasse process where they have to wait potentially another 6 months to ultimately get this resolved while they don't get paid. We don't want any of that to happen. We don't think that's a great situation for our GAs. Instead, we want to make sure that they get these increases as soon as we can possibly implement them. So for that reason, we're going to rely on Article 10.5 of the CBA, which states that nothing contained in the CBA shall prevent the university or its units from providing salary increases beyond the increases specified in the CBA. So this means that UF is processing the stipend increases outlined in this compensation package, and we'll be rolling them out as soon as we can sort of practically do that. They will be retroactive back to the first of the calendar year. That also includes the increase to the minimum stipend. And additionally, the one-time payments will be made in August in accordance with this compensation package. We're going to do that now to make sure our GAs are taken care of as best we can. If the GAU still wants to talk about what the GAs want above and beyond this proposal, there's still bargaining, and the university still, will engage in good faith bargaining and consider any proposals that the GAs make between now and the end of June. But we think right now we feel some urgency to get these out, get money into the pockets of the GAs while we consider any additional sort of bargaining proposals or information that the GAs want to propose or provide us going forward.
So let me understand. So what you're gonna do is actually implement these changes just using 10.5.
And continue to bargain in good faith if the GAU has any additional proposals going forward.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, we do appreciate it. I'm glad that you've heard how tough it is for some of us out here. And it's only getting worse. My rent increased, or they tried to increase my rent $300 with my lease renewal. So again, it is difficult out here. So we do appreciate the expediency that you're trying to implement this. GAU does appreciate that. And we will continue to negotiate. But again, we do appreciate you trying to get this to our members as soon as possible.
Yep.
Yes, again, this is a welcome relief for GAs. However, in terms of a proposal, this is not a proposal we can accept. As you well know, the inflation calculation of a 2017 minimum towards converted towards April 2022 is in more than 25,000. So this is what I like. This is what I wanted to ask you. Going back to your statement, is that a fair change of the situation? Because effectively, we cannot accept a minimum that goes to this number, because it would be effectively to accept a pay cut. Is that the what the administration sees as?
I think the administration sees this as the best it can do in the moment, given the increased costs that the university is facing, the raises or compensation packages that it feels it needs to help everybody with at this time. Not to sort of belabor the point that I made 2 sessions ago, but this is where it feels is the reality of the economic situation, even if it would like to do more and intends to continue to invest in GAs as we go forward. I think there'll be some discussion about GAs and the trustees' continuing interest in prioritizing this group of employees at our June board meeting. But at this point, this is fair or not, and whether the university would like to do more or not, which it would, this is sort of the economic realities of our situation.
But there's also the economic realities of all the graduate assistants as well.
And honestly, really,
like how actually are people supposed to live on $18,000 a year? Like that's like a serious.
I'm not an economist. I honestly don't. I don't really know that. That what things are. I don't know. I don't know the answer to whether that's a viable situation. I don't know the answer to.
Well, I mean, you could think for yourself, right? Like, could you find an apartment? Could you live comfortably on $18,000 a year in Gainesville?
I was a GA myself back in the day and made the equivalent of this back in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, not to ask you your age, but which was that time?
It was back in 2000, early 2000s.
All right. So
Gainesville is a different place then. in
Gainesville
terms of
is a
rent.
very different place now. And even
Everyone will tell you. Mhm.
if you take, what was it, 18,000 in the early 2000s, let's take it to, I don't know, January 2000, a conversion of 18th, a conversion of look at this, please.
Are you wanting to share your screen, Esteban? I'm
Yes.
So I'll stop sharing.
Look at look at this. A conversion of 18,000 in January 2000 is 30K today. Like inflation has happened in the middle, and there is one more thing. Like, sorry that I'm moving my screen, but I need to look at the typical expenses of the MIT calculator for Gainesville. We're talking about 31,000 to make ends meet, to afford living costs. And again, this is so to answer your question, clearly you can't with 18,000. Now, if you take a look at the economic situation, which you have cited many times, the total, like, despite costs increasing, your total assets have gone from 4.4 billion to 5 billion, that means a 14% increase in the nominal terms, but a 5% increase in real terms. That means that despite increasing costs, you're going above the net position. Even the total assets doesn't make much of a case here, because many assets are buildings. They are fairly solid, right? But the net position, which is the way you evaluate your costs and income, have gone from 1.9 billion to 2.1 billion. That is an 11.5% increase nominal and 3% increase in real terms. Despite increasing costs, you're making more money effectively. And the Florida legislature has gone from 435 million to 498 million. That means an increase of 63 million, a 14.48% increase nominal terms, 5.98% in real terms. Even if you had to keep us conscripted to what the Florida legislature gives you, which is not the case of every employee. You spend 2.5 billion on employee compensation and benefits. You're still growing in real terms. Now, if the concern is a concern about time, this negotiation started a long time ago, and the data was already there a long time ago. This happened in September, at the very end of September last year. So, I
think we're trying to address the concern about time by going ahead and implementing this now. That was my only concern, is that. So we're addressing that.
No, we do understand that, yes, and we appreciate it, because it's true. GAs are in a very bad position right now. And that's why it's been a compromise on our side between helping them out, but at the same time not willingly accepting a pay cut. Because what happens afterwards in negotiation terms forward is that when you accept a pay cut, you establish a new canon to calculate inflation. So in the future, if we wanted to negotiate a minimum, we would be playing with the minimum accepted in 2022, which was effectively a pay cut compared to the one of 2017. And it's been a huge play between those necessities, right? And we appreciate that. But at the same time, we don't see how the numbers add up. And what's more, in the last session, not in the last session, but in the session before that, in which you mentioned the statement that you gave us, you mentioned that the university was willing to invest an increase of 6% in the compensation package for GAs, right? So that means 7 million in total, and the compensation package that you gave us last time got to 4.7 million, give or take, including the fringe rates. We are currently under this situation, probably in a bit more, because you've changed the one-time payments, but the one-time payments were roughly $1 million.
Correct.
So that's mainly our point. We don't see how these numbers add up. Why the university is in such constraints economically when the net position is going beyond inflation, when the appropriations from the legislature are going beyond inflation, when the total assets are going beyond inflation, when you have record undergrad applicants for the class of 2025. And I mean, this is the report that the financial report that takes the bulk of the pandemic, the worst parts. The one before barely took a couple of months, but this one is really taking into account most of the pandemic. You have record philanthropy fundraising. You've raised 562 millions. You surpassed the Florida Go Greater fundraising campaign from 3 billion to 3.2 billion. You have 861 million raised in research funds. And you have, at the same time, an ongoing net increase initiative of hiring 500 faculty and an additional 100 AI faculty hiring. If you were paying this faculty, 60K, not really, you're paying probably more. But let's imagine you're paying 60K and you multiply it by 600, you're talking about $36 million. You're building a student healthcare center that is $26 million. We understand that this money doesn't come, everything doesn't come from the same place. But we know even if you wanted to keep the GAs just budgeted through the Florida legislature, there is more than 60 million increase in the Florida legislature allocations.
That's not actually true. The appropriations to the university are actually about 4.3% less this year than last year.
Then could you explain us, actually, that would be very useful, because we've talked about that situation at some point.
I'm not going to be able to explain it, but I can write you an email that explains it in writing. I'm not the best person at explaining it, but I will put together some information.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, because
it has to do with the legislature changed the way in which they list things in the appropriation bill this year. And it has to do with the way they listed things and how they group things differently this year. And I'll get you the details about what I mean, but in general terms, how they list things this year compared to how they do it previous years, that makes the numbers look different. But it's an actual 4.3% decrease.
If you wouldn't mind giving us
happy
that
to.
information, it would be great, because we are guiding ourselves through the main article within the Florida Senate page that gives us like the breakdown of the legislature appropriations, and that would be very useful. But even if you didn't, if you couldn't use the Florida legislature appropriations, you're still paying many employees, the vast majority of employees, from other funds. You have 2.5 billion in compensation and benefits. It's very hard to understand why an increase of the minimum that goes beyond the inflation since 2017 is so difficult. Actually,
A lot
an
of
increase of the minimum,
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
an increase of the minimum beyond what the inflation has been since 2017 would be even less of what you're already spending under the current proposal. It would be 2.2 million just to do a minimum increase that gets us back on beating inflation. Just taking the minimum to 25,200, which is the equivalent of April 2022. And I understand that this is really an ongoing cost, because once the minimum changes, it changes for everyone and forever. But at the same time, it's even less money than what you are offering now.
So a lot of employees at the University of Florida are paid off of a contractor grant. And that money comes in and is completely earmarked for those salaries. It can't be used for anything else. And if that money wasn't here to fund those salaries, those employees wouldn't be here. A lot of employees at the university work for what's called an auxiliary unit, which they make their own revenue. And if they make revenues, they can use it to pay employees. If they don't, there is no additional funds that come to support them. And those auxiliaries would also have to shut down or shrink and not be employed. A lot of the money that also comes in from donors and other places, those donors decide where that money goes. And none of it's really provided for any sort of salaries. They put it towards all kinds of other things, whether it's scholarships, or buildings, or other programs. So we talk in broad terms about a lot of the dollars and a lot of the assets the university has, but the vast majority of it is one-time money, which isn't responsible to put towards recurring debts like salaries and pay. And it's earmarked for things that you can't move around and use to pay other people. And we wouldn't employ those people if we didn't have the money for this funding for them. It's not like it's, robbing Peter to pay Paul. We get this money, then we can have this other money. That money's not here. Those employees just aren't paid.
So what you're saying is that what about but isn't worth increasing, at least updating the minimum for the GAs on a 2.2 million basis from any funds the university has available, regardless of the Florida legislature? Isn't at least worth it to at least not give GAs a pay cut?
Well, and I just want to say, like, recruitment and retention are going to go down. If you're not keeping up with how UF is ranked, you're not going to be able to keep up, especially with all the scandals that UF is currently facing, right? As grad students, we do a lot of the research that gets these grants. A lot of us are self-funded as well. So I just want to make it clear that paying GAs better is an investment. It's not a cost.
And there is one more thing. When a GA gets a letter of appointment from the University of Florida, it's also choosing the University of Florida above other acceptance and appointment letters. And there is how to say it, a conception that an academic institution would pay something that affords the living costs in the place where you're working for your academic work. But you can tell, like, is that a naive assumption?
We do have some people who have had their hand raised for a while,
Yeah.
Esteban.
Yes.
So Sarah, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And sorry for any background noise. I got kiddos in the house, but I'm fairly new to GAU. I've been involved or been a member for a few months. And yesterday when I received the email about this meeting, it's actually the first one I'm attending. I decided to apply for the Family and Child Care Committee chair position. So back in 2019, I had an apartment downtown. After 2 years, we did need to move because the condition of the apartment was a little sketchy, the roof leaked, and et cetera. And I was forced to move to the next county over, the adjacent county, Putnam County, which happens to be the poorest county in the state. I was fortunate to have family here to move in with, who I currently still live with. And the only reason I'm able to move back into Alachua County, into a better school district for my son who has special needs, is because of another family friend. But I was born and raised in Gainesville, so I have that benefit and that option. And many GAs come from out of state, from out of country, and don't have a support network like I happen to have. GAs also have kids who rely on them. Kids are expensive, not just with money, but with time. So essentially what it sounds like to me is it sounds like UF does not value graduate assistants for what we're worth. Someone with a bachelor's degree in many fields can go and work in private industry who will value us. And after COVID, are providing even more perks than before, like childcare stipends and extra resources and such, which as far as I'm aware, we don't really get anything extra benefit. Not that having a child means that you should have extra benefits, right? Because that was your choice to do so, but still we are adults, we are grown, we are not relying on our families anymore, if we even had that to begin with, which some of us didn't. And we're trying our best to support our families. We could leave. We don't have to stay and teach at the university and provide that to them. We could go get a job. I could go get a job right now and make, in a couple years, I could be making triple what I'm making as a GA. I enjoy academia. I enjoy teaching. I want to get my PhD eventually and work in research, but it's incredibly difficult to do so when I can't afford to send my son to the private school I want to send him to that would benefit him, when I can't do those things. And that's the reason why after my master's degree is done in December, I'm actually going to take several years off and work, because I can't afford to build my house. I can't afford a mortgage on this type of salary to provide for my family. And unfortunately, I wanted to go through and do my PhD all the way through. I was a McNair scholar, and part of that, if you don't know what it is, it's an undergraduate program for undergraduate researchers in our final year. And part of it is a commitment to stay on and go straight through graduate school and get your PhD and become a doctor, right? Financially, I can't afford to do that. I'm grown, I have a family. So to me, it just sounds like private companies and even other federal and state agencies value our expertise more. And that's really, really sad, because UF depends on us. Without us, they don't have, I taught an in-person class for the first time this semester. I had 28 students that I was 100% responsible for. And I don't even have my master's degree yet. I had finished my classes so that I was qualified, and that's something that my advisor is paid 6 figures for, the same job. But I'm making 18,000. It doesn't feel right. I don't feel valued. Thank you.
I'm muted. Thank you for that. Mihana Mitchell, I don't know if she's here, but she asked at some point to talk, or if not, we can go on to Michaela. I think Michaela.
I don't see her in the list.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, I think Che raised their hand before me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, they did.
Thank you. Che?
Sure, thanks. I just wanted to share some personal stories about how these conditions, like these working conditions overall, not just wages, is impacting the health of graduate assistants. One of my dear colleagues actually had a heart attack weekend before last, and I'm not going to blame that on UF. Like, obviously that's a health issue, but what I will say is that possibly she wouldn't have had that, or would have had more time to establish a primary care physician here had she not been working 2 part-time jobs on top of her assistantship, on top of being a full-time grad student. And she has the privilege of doing that because she is a domestic student and not an international one. But no one should have to work 2 jobs on top of their assistantship, on top of being a student. And she's had to do that because the rent went up. Her rent went up $300 a month, and she needs a place to live. And then on top of that, I have personally received 4 medical diagnoses now since starting this program. Again, would I have had those before? I can't say. However, I can say that each time I get one of these diagnoses, that again is chronic, not a temporary illness, and being told by medical professionals that I need to manage my stress better. And at some point, you have to shift the responsibility from the individual to the systems that are impacting those people. And just for context, me and my colleague are both licensed mental health counselors. We are experts at stress management. And so I just say that to highlight that this is not a matter of numbers. These are people's well-being. I appreciate the language that I'm finally hearing for the first time that UF wants to do better, and just want to highlight that the intention or desire to do better is very different from actually doing better.
Thank you, Che. Michaela, would you like to go next?
Yes, and sorry that I'm keeping my camera off. My internet is atrocious right now. Also, sorry if I suddenly leave. It's because my Wi-Fi keeps cutting out. And also, I guess I'm afraid that this question has already been answered, but because things have been cutting out, I might have missed it. But I have a question, and that is that, are there set rules on how much can be allocated in each, or how much money can be allocated in each area, such as like only this amount can be allocated in stipends, this much be allocated to buildings and stuff? I guess especially from donors, or is there like a possibility of making cuts in other areas in order to, I guess, put money towards?
That's a good question. There are rules, both sort of statutory rules about what's called, the color of money, where certain monies are earmarked for certain things, and you are not allowed to mix and match those monies, or take from one pot that's not designated for salaries, for example, and it's for something else. And then as far as donors go, the university, and anytime somebody donates a significant amount of money through our foundation, they enter into a donor agreement, and the agreement spells out what the donor is giving the money for, and it's a contract just like any other contract, and the university is obligated to follow the wishes of the donor through that contract.
Okay, I did definitely figure as such for donors. But I guess if there is any possibility, or if there is any areas where there is some flexibility, or with a certain amount of money, I don't know, encourage, I know budget cuts in any area are very difficult, but budget cuts towards your graduate students, I think, will have the largest impact on the university, especially reiterating that we are the ones who are bringing in the money. We are the ones who are giving UF such a high ranking, especially in the area of research. And with so many of us, and not even just the graduate students, but like faculty, but it's with so many of us wanting to drop out or currently quitting graduate school purely because of financial issues. And for I've met people at recruitment weekends who are some of the most intelligent minds I've ever met, and would have such a great impact on the sciences at UF. Tell me that they want to come here because they love all the professors here, they love everything about UF, but the reason why they are not coming here is because, and accounting for cost of living, UF is the significantly lowest paying out of all the universities they got accepted to, even though we might be the highest ranked of all the ones that they've been accepted to. So all I'm saying is that this will take a hit on the university's ranking for sure if cuts aren't made in other areas, if it is possible to make cuts in other areas. Yeah, that's really it. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you. Bryn?
Hey, yeah, let me try and take this off. Okay, I have 2 questions. So one, has UF done any cost of living analysis? Like, do they use any cost of living analysis when they design these proposals? Or was it just looking at the current budget?
It's because of cost increases and budget restraints. It is primarily based upon what what funds are available.
And then also, the NSF director, when he was here the other week, we asked him what he is interested in doing for GAs to ensure a living wage through grants that the NSF funds. And he kind of deferred back to universities, even though NSF definitely has the ability to set their minimum. But anyway, so I'm wondering if you have any immediate thoughts or would be willing to look into, like, when apparently these deferring conversations happen, I don't know, if UF would be willing to have a specific number they would suggest for NSF to fund grad assistance at, like, because I feel like they would refer like, okay, your minimum is this, so we'll fund your grad students at that. But would UF be willing to say, we recommend you bump it up to 25 or 28 or 30 or something?
I think that's something that the university is very willing to consider. I honestly don't know what the current process is as far as what is negotiated for GA salaries and those kinds of grants and contracts, and whether there is a minimum now or not. And I don't know whether it depends on who the federal sponsor is, NSF versus other
the
ones.
NSF currently has no minimum for GAs, and so that's why we're asking if they'd be interested in setting a minimum, and they said they would work with universities, which was like, I don't, like, they don't have to, but anyway, apparently that's happening. So I was hoping that
I
could
don't
be
know what their reasons for that is. It may be this universities with different sort of restraints and budgets and research endowments. I'm not sure, but and so they can't really do a one size fits all. But yes, absolutely, we'll talk to them about it. It's possible we already have an internal sort of, we're going to negotiate a set amount for certain federal sponsors that we believe can afford it. And if so, I can find that out and get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
One question, more general, and this is not a rhetorical question, but when prospective GAs get their appointment letter, is it a reasonable assumption to think that the stipend will be enough to cover living costs?
I honestly don't know. I don't know what the assumptions are based on. I don't know if there is any built-in assumptions on loans or other things. I really don't know. I'm not part of generating or creating those letters or setting the amounts. It may also just simply be that for some departments and some parts of the university, that's simply what they can afford and what they have to provide, regardless of whether they think it's sufficient or not.
Thank you. Spencer?
Hi, I'm Spencer Murphy. I'm a third-year doc student in the counselor education department. I have, since being a GA, I've taught classes for undergrads and helped to teach other master's students within my program. I've immediately supervised master's students in their clinical experiences. I've also helped facilitate research grants for substance abuse addiction counseling that's supposed to be used nationwide. So safe to say I've done a lot of crap since I've been here. Been a busy guy, but I get paid $1,200 a month under my current contract. My rent is $1,300 a month. I have a car payment that's $176.56. I have groceries, I have gas, I have a dog who is epileptic, and I have to pay for his medication and his food on top of that because he also needs to live. So with all of that said, when I hear you say, I can't determine for a fact whether or not a stipend can be seen as enough to cover expenses, I have a stipulation within my contract that says I cannot seek outside employment while I am working as a graduate assistant in this capacity. So it is pretty safe to say that they are intending that this is enough to cover it, though they know that under $1,200 a month, that is nowhere near enough to cover things, which is why they want you to take out loans. It is incredibly predatory. So when I hear you say, I can't determine, or I don't know, frankly, that's bullshit, sir. And I would love to see any of you try to live when your rent is $1,300 a month and you're getting paid $1,200 a month. And that's on top of the fact I'm teaching the same classes I taught last summer, but I'm teaching double the students and I'm getting paid less. Last summer, I got paid more than what I get paid now, and I'm teaching double the students. So make it make sense. So I would like to just kind of wrap this up before I get a bit too carried away here. At some point, when I hear you all who are representing employers say we're here in good faith, at some point we have to recognize, no, you absolutely are not. Inherently, as someone who represents employers, you are not here in the best interest of us. You are not here to actually understand and listen to the things we say. So that's when the chat is getting flooded with stories extremely similar to mine. None of you care. You don't even address the things that are coming up in the chat because you are not here in good faith. And there will come a time when you are not continuing to bargain with us, where we will no longer be coming to the table. We will not be bargaining. You will have a strike, and that's not fun. You don't want that.
Thank you, Spencer. On a note on bargaining in particular, we appreciate that you're proceeding with 10.5 and putting in motion the increases that you are stipulating in the current proposal. But at this point, I have to ask, like, we have 20 days of time. We have 20 days until the 28th. And I do have to ask, do we need the extra assistance that an impasse brings? Do we need a mediator? We can even get a mediator now. We're not interested in impasse. It's not a process that by design is very favorable to us. By all means, like the third stage of impasse is decided at the Board of Trustees. But we know that this impasse will be particularly special. We know that your net position is up. You know that your total assets are up, and all of those numbers will have to be gone through, and this was at the bulk of the pandemic. We know that this is a particularly special impasse, regardless of how difficult impasse is on our party. We understand that also you're offering effectively a pay cut. There is no way to work inflation around this change of the minimum. It is a pay cut. So I ask again, do you think we need the extra assistance of an impasse? We don't like it. We don't want it. We can solve this today, as I said. A change of the minimum that goes beyond inflation is even cheaper than what you're offering. If you put the money that you're offering, 4.7 million, you can end up with a more solid minimum. It will not reach the MIT calculator, but we are past that. We are past the University of Georgia salary. But that money would do very good to a minimum. It would be an acceptable alternative. But that's completely up to you. We can come with you today with a proposal that moves a little bit in the same way you moved today, or we can really move forward, end this reopener, and start a reopener next semester.
I think some of those are decisions that you guys are gonna have to make on your own. I think to be as transparent as possible, if you're talking about this particular salary negotiation that goes back to January 1.
It goes to October, September of last year.
I just mean the actual pay increase.
Yeah.
You're right, the negotiations go back to last year. My sense is that you probably have essentially the limit of what the university is offering So if that doesn't mean we're not willing to listen to more. I think there seems to be a very strong opinion at the university that a raise, a 3% raise must be a part of this. So, you know, your idea about moving some of that to help with the minimum or move the minimum is doesn't seem to be of interest. So again, just to help you understand where the parties are and any decisions that the GAU has to make going forward. I think what you've seen is probably where things largely stand on the university side.
I can even give you a change of the minimum that satisfies, updates it to inflation with very little cost added to what you're offering. Here's the thinking. When you increase the 3%, you're already, in fact, incurring in a cost that takes away from the cost of increasing the minimum. Currently, and let me open this, by our calculations, the combined expense of increasing, giving a 3% to everyone and increasing the minimum up to at least April 2022 would be in approximately $5 million. Let me show you this. 1 second. Can you all see my screen? Not yet, right?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Now we can.
Okay. Minimum for inflation, April 2022. So once you've done, this is calculated over a 3% raise. Once you've done the 3% raise, you're incurring, if you want to take the minimum to the inflation of April 2022, you're taking it in 1.6 million. That's the cost of increasing the minimum. Added to the 708 or 3% raise, you're getting to 4.6 million. If you add the future fringe rate, not the current one, you're in 5.2 million. It's not far away from what you're offering. You're offering something around 4.7 million. Today, you're offering more, actually. We would have to run the numbers, but you're not very far away.
So your calculations show if there's a 3% increase, which obviously raises some folks above the minimum, right?
Yeah, and some people closer to a new minimum.
Okay, and brings people closer. Then to get that minimum up from 16 to what? To what number is that?
Well, let's play with the, I'm playing with the 12-month. So if you're doing, you're taking it to 25,200 in the 12-month, that would be in terms of 9-month appointment, it would be 18,900. Once you've done, the point is that once you've done the 3% increase, increasing the minimum, it's not too much.
And it's 1.607.
Yes, this is the cost. This is the cost of the increase of the minimum after you've done the 3% raise, right? Because by the way the language is written, you do the 3% raise first, and then you change the minimum. If you add it to the cost of the 3% raise, or 708, which is calculated here, it's around 3 million, you will end up with 4.6 million. And then you have to add the fringe rates, right? This is the future fringe rate.
So the total without fringe is 4.6 million, 226. and you're saying that 4.6 million without fringe is the
a 3% raise
3% plus an increase of the minimum to 18.9, right? So we're saying
for the 9-month appointment, or 25,200 for
Right,
the
right.
12-month appointments, and no one-time payments.
I know one time, yeah.
The one-time payments are rather expensive also.
Okay.
If you move that million and you scramble that money, and now it's more than $1 million with what you're offering today, it's actually more. You end up in something rather similar, something that satisfies both parties, doesn't get us to a lengthy impasse, and we can all continue with our lives next semester.
Also, Esteban mentioned this a couple sessions ago, like we're willing, our focus this bargaining session is increasing the minimum. We could, you know, definitely, if UF admin or the Board of Trustees finds this a sticking point, we could anticipate when we negotiate next year for stipend increases only a percentage across the board pay, if that would be amenable to them. Again, our biggest priority is just getting people to a place where they can pay their bills. And $300 isn't, you know, in a one-time payment isn't going to do that. So.
Okay.
So what Rachel is saying is that if there is
more hands up. Oh,
sorry, 1 second. If there is a sufficient cushion over that minimum, we can forget about talking about the minimum next time. We are trying to fight a war against inflation all the time. We don't want the minimum to fall behind that. If there is some cushion, we can start forgetting about talking about the minimum again next semester, and focus on across the board raises, which is also important. Everyone has suffered inflation.
Yes.
Everyone has suffered inflation, and they need attention in that regard. We just go to the minimum first because it's the most effective way to ensure that everyone is above a certain limit. But that's totally on the table.
Yeah, and again, the minimum, increasing the minimum protects the most vulnerable GAs, which again is our top priority. International students and those who, when their contract can't work outside for any additional income, you know, those who have family members that they're supporting, right? That's why it's our priority, but we would absolutely be amenable to anything like that, as Esteban says.
And again, numbers are numbers, right? Like if you're making 40, 50, 60K, which some GAs are making, and we're happy for them, yeah, you still suffered inflation. The problem is that it's far worse if you're making 16. Michaela and Talia, I don't know which of you was first.
Michaela, I believe.
Yeah.
I was first.
Go ahead.
I was maybe waiting for a response from Ryan on what you said, but so I Ryan, you say that you were a graduate student once, and I'm not going to make any assumptions of whether or not you're an international student or anything, but again, with also like with contracts as well. So international students can't get loans or a second job. I also cannot get a second job due to my contract. I also cannot get a co-signer for loans or for rent, and rent I need to be paying, or I need to be making 3 times the rent for anywhere in Gainesville, or else I need a co-signer. I physically cannot get a co-signer because I grew up below the poverty line. I don't know what people who, and people who grew up in marginalized communities or people who grew up in poverty are supposed to do. Like, I have no other option. I've tried everything. I've tried all types of government assistance, and I'm doing everything I can, but I don't have any other option other than quitting. And I don't know if you have any other solution other than just quitting, because I cannot physically get a loan. I cannot physically get a place to live here. I don't know what my option is, especially for like what international students' options are either.
It's a great question. I don't have the answer to that question sitting here right now. I don't know. the specific circumstances under which there might be assistance at the university. I can certainly, have look into it and connect you with other folks at the university who might be able to assist and who are more knowledgeable about what is and isn't available.
Okay, I have talked to many people at the university about what kind of assistance is offered. It is extremely limited. All I've really been given is just advice on what food pantries I can go to and what types of government assistance and what types of affordable housing I can apply for. But unfortunately, I do not qualify for many of it. So obviously that's not at the full university. That is just, below maximum pays for stuff like that. But yeah,
I think what you can do and what the university can do to help would be to just pay something that would, so Michaela doesn't have to worry about these things and she could just pay her bills with the money that she makes from her job.
I was able to pay my bills just in 2020. Like, it is just inflation that has put me over the edge, and now I cannot pay those bills anymore. Like, it was possible on a graduate student stipend. It is no longer possible at all.
Yep. Yeah, and UF is quickly becoming a place where only rich kids can go, honestly.
Exactly.
Only people with a wealthy background, people that can have families that can support them, where UF's quickly turning into that kind of place, and that really doesn't honor the diversity initiatives, first gen initiatives that UF has in place.
I agree. And also I think that people who are not rich, privileged, I guess, whatever, adults, I don't think that we're any less deserving of getting our PhDs than people who can have help from their parents and from outside sources. I don't think that we're any less deserving of that.
And just to expand your point, we get a considerable amount of emails of initiatives from the university to increase diversity. The problem is that emails can only go so far. The only way to actually increase diversity is to allow a GA not to live an affluent lifestyle, but at least to make ends meet. So any GA without the need of family support can go through grad school, can provide the university with the research we do, can provide the university with the teaching we do. And in that way, at least you ensure that you don't need an affluent background to go to be a GA at UF. I think Talia was first, and then Sarah.
Yeah, hi. This is just a question about the Board of Trustees meeting that was mentioned. So, when is that happening, and can GAU have a presence at that?
I think the meeting is June 16th and 17th.
Public comments are possible. Yes, there are 3 meetings.
Public, Esteban knows public comments are possible.
Okay.
The process is probably on the Board of Trustees website.
Okay,
Yes,
and
they are
just
3 meetings.
Email. You have to email bot@ufl.edu and request. Yeah.
okay. And just out of curiosity, have the Board of Trustees watched any of these recordings or ever attended one of these union meetings? Like, have they been invested at all in hearing the stories of GAs?
They are invested. Information has been shared with them. I can't tell you whether they've actually watched a recording of a bargaining session or not.
All right, well, the fact that none of them have ever been present as long as I've been attending, and that's been since last year, kind of conflicts with the statement that they're invested in hearing our struggles and actually hearing what we have to say about these incredibly low stipends. But
it would not be my recommendation to have trustees at a bargaining session. They ultimately have to independently ratify an agreement that these two teams reach, and I don't know that it would be a good idea to have them here and create a potential conflict in that situation. And I can also tell you, I've been sitting in bargaining sessions at the University of Florida for not just GAs, but faculty and police and staff for 10 years now. And a trustee has never attended any bargaining session for any of those groups to allow the bargaining teams to do their jobs.
Well, but if we go to impasse though, then the board of trustees is eventually the one that makes the decision. So
All the more
I mean,
reason for them to
eventually,
not be at bargaining.
right, but like eventually they're gonna be invested in this whole situation.
If the impasse process were to get to its final stage, then they ultimately make the decision, yes.
In any case,
And then one
we
final
still have,
question.
yeah, please go ahead.
Well, what do you mean then at the meeting that they're going to discuss the GA situation? So what will they be discussing?
I don't know for sure. I don't know. It's my understanding that our board chair wants to talk to his fellow trustees about the importance of GAs and paying special attention to the GAs. What that ultimately entails, I'm not privileged to. I don't know.
Is there anybody else we can talk to directly, like regarding this? So I think we've only really been just talking to you.
I am the person, and my team is the team that the university has designated to engage in bargaining. That doesn't stop you
Who
from
hasn't said
obviously.
anything since last year? I haven't heard a single one of them say anything.
I don't know. Is there something you'd like me to respond to, or
Well, I mean, you said you and your team are the people to talk to, but so far you're the only person we've talked to. And anytime we say, well, who else can we talk to? Because all you ever have to say is, I don't know. Your answer is my team. And, you know, they're here, they're not saying anything. So I don't really understand how that doesn't seem like a contradiction to you. Like, we have no one else to reach out to, and you don't really tell us anything.
I bring you the university's proposals. My team is involved in discussing those proposals and their presentation. I don't think they would say anything differently than I have said. We prefer to speak with one voice as a team.
Sorry, you said that so that there is nobody else that we can talk to, or is there somebody we can choose to talk to?
Well, we have asked to have the CFO on these sessions a few times now, and that has yet to materialize yet. And I think that would help answer a lot of financial questions, because I mean, if you just scroll through the chat, right, like people like do not trust y'all. People do not trust UF, and I think having an extra person who has the knowledge and has the breadth of access to information that it would be valuable to bring into these sessions. And I think we've asked for that before. And I know he can come because we've had him, or we've had the former CFO at our past sessions.
Even like, I guess not as formally, is there something like, as not a full bargaining session, but I guess just somebody that either the president of the GAU can just talk to directly, or I don't know. It just seems like
we can meet offline, but we don't need to do that yet.
Okay.
And it cannot be bargaining.
Yeah.
Bargaining is strictly public. This is the other point. Even though the trustees choose not to be here, you also have to ratify this contract if we reach an agreement, and you're still here. It's part of the issue of Florida having public negotiations, which comes to an advantage to us. I believe this is much better to have public negotiations, but it demands that there can be a consultation among the parties, but it cannot be bargaining, right?
I understand. Okay. It just seems like where we're getting with this is, you know, you don't really know what can be done. So I don't know if like that there was somebody else that would know how to fix this issue, I guess. That's all.
This team brings proposals that the university and its senior administration have discussed and approved. So what we do know is what the university at this time is willing to offer.
Right. Yeah. It just, I think would just be very productive to talk with people who call the shots, you know. I understand that's not how it works.
Sarah?
Thank you. Hold on, buddy. Yeah, so my comment was kind of going back to what Michaela had mentioned. So as a woman, as a mom, as a low income first generation student, I was recruited in 2017 while still at Santa Fe College to come to UF and to transfer into the geography department, which is where I currently am still doing my master's. And while I have felt incredibly supported by my department, after today's meeting, you know, and from what I've seen, from what we're being paid, it just once again doesn't feel like UF values us, but also doesn't value the overall mission in academia right now for that diversity, for the incorporating underrepresented students. Because if you're not going to be flexible and listen to these underrepresented students about our underrepresented lives, then UF is not going to be able to keep up with those initiatives, and graduate students are going to go elsewhere where they can get paid more and be valued for their labor.
Shelly?
Hi, so really I just have a statement. About 2 weeks ago now, I was interviewed and it was published on Science and Nature about UF's pitiful stipend. And since then, I've gotten contacted from associate deans and deans at other universities. I've heard from faculty members who are really pushing for their stipends to go up. Here at UF, we are not doing that. It is so sad to hear you guys speak and to hear this conversation continue. We look bad. We are going to continue to look bad. And I hope that, you know, we stop this ridiculous focus on being top 5 and having low faculty to student ratios, because those barely matter when our classes are taught by TAs that are paid nothing. This school's education is going to continue to suffer. The undergraduate education will suffer if you do not pay the teachers, those TAs, well enough. And then the research will suffer, because in my department, there are faculty who cannot get students because we don't have enough funding. The fact that we have continued to hire faculty and not put money to get more students, let alone pay our students well, we are not going to do well. We look bad, we are doing bad, and I hope that is communicated and discussed in the Board of Trustees, because this is ridiculous. This is the saddest thing to watch. I like UF, I enjoy the faculty I get to work with, but I do not like this insane focus on top 5 that leads to, you know, not good production, faculty who aren't doing well, and then us all suffering from inflation. There needs to be something done, and I hope that UF is paying attention to what we look like, because we don't look good.
Ryan, will you give us 10 minutes so we can come back with you with a proposal?
Okay.
Thank you.
How about, so you don't have to worry about any particular time limit, we'll just maybe shoot me an email when you're ready and we'll jump back on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
This meeting will collapse anyways, most likely. Okay, everyone, we're going to the debrief link. We'll meet you there, discuss our counter proposal, and get back here real quick. Okay, see you all there.
Brent.
Yeah, everyone quiet. We can't.
Now I am starting the recording, please.
No, you're good.
No, we were just having
You're
a personal
good.
conversation, that's all.
Yeah, no personal conversations in this session. Use the debrief for that.
Yeah, it's public record, you guys. Anything you hear will be on the internet in perpetuity. So.
Uh-oh.
All right. So, Ryan, we have a counter proposal for you. Thanks for waiting so patiently.
Sure.
Can you all see this?
Yes.
All right. So what you see here is a change of the minimum to 27,900. I mean, we are coming back to you with this essentially because we are afraid that the last time we came, the times we came back, like from a proposal that had some measurement behind, was the equivalent of another university, or had to do with a cost calculation, living cost calculation of living in Gainesville. We didn't get a similar movement on the other side. That's why there was some pressure in the debrief to still give you this.
Understand.
Having said that, I will send you the numbers. I'll send you the spreadsheet for the for what an equivalent of a proposal of 25,200, just an update for inflation, and the 3% that you're pursuing looks like. And again, that's an acceptable option. Now, what we really have to talk about today is, first, let me send this through as a file here, and then I'll send it through email, but for the sake of the official aspects, here is our proposal. And if you could send us also your proposal through email, it would be great because it got lost in the chat too.
Yes.
But it's pretty straightforward, your proposal. We understand what's going on. We will also run the calculations of what the current cost of your proposal is. It might be even closer or or even more expensive than what we are suggesting. And again, that's if you're set on the 3%. If you're not set on the 3%, it can even go lower, and we would still be having a minimum that is robust. And I will send you the calculations for those minimums as well, so you can see that. What we need to talk is dates and the pace at which we are negotiating, because we don't want to go past we need to check what the stipulations for impasse are and how far away from the last date of bargaining it can be declared, because we don't want to miss that date neither. If you need one more week of bargaining, we can extend it one more week. What's one more strip to the tiger, really? So that's absolutely possible. Just talk to us, let us know how's timing on your side. We have until the 28th. We can reconvene next week, of course. But again, if you need more time, we can add one more week from the 28th forward, so no one misses dates. We don't miss a bargaining date, a bargaining deadline, and we don't miss any impasse deadlines. I have to go through the language, but we just need to be mindful of those deadlines.
Understood.
And that's pretty much it on our side.
All right. Well, we appreciate the proposal. Did you say
I do
you're
have
gonna?
one more question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rachel.
Sorry,
yeah,
I
go
didn't mean to
ahead.
cut you off. I was just wondering when you would be starting the behind the scenes work in the increase that you guys were planning, or if that's going to be delayed. I just was curious.
I think there's going to be conversations about getting it going today or tomorrow.
Okay.
I think there's a pay period issue, but we're going to do our best to have it start to show up in paychecks along with, a retro payment before the end of this month. Am I speaking out of turn, Brad, or is that something that we think it's doable?
No, that's fine. So Rachel, just so you know, my team is the one that processes the raises, which is why I kind of listen in on all these. Our university payroll processes closes tomorrow, which obviously we can't get them all loaded today and have that done. I have a call scheduled with payroll services, UFIT, and a couple of other stakeholders for tomorrow to talk through the timeline. Our goal will be to do this as quickly as we can, but we just need to work out some dates and times.
Oh, I understand. It's a big process. There's a lot of people on payroll and a lot of different departments. That's why I was just kind of curious as to if there was a timeline of when it would be expected. So I appreciate that.
And Esteban, you said you were going to send me the cost calculations. That's super helpful.
Yes, I'll send you a lot of cost calculations.
It's always been helpful.
I'll send you a series of cost calculations. The most important one being the one of the update for inflation plus the 3%. I will also send you different cost calculations for what an increase of the minimum means alone in terms of costs, and how far away can you even get with what you're already offering.
Okay. And is the 708 in that proposal, is that the equivalent of taking 3% and dividing
That's the
by
equivalent
the
of 3%, and at some point you gave us two proposals.
Yep.
I think that was April 18th, and there was 3% or 708.4.
Got it. Okay.
But yes, that's the 3% that you offered.
Yep.
And our preference is with one-time payment. Sorry, not with one-time payments, with an across-the-board raise that is fixed, because if we are not moving the minimum too much, it helps the people low in the line a little bit more.
All right, Brent, let's you and me talk about that before you press the go button on anything final. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Esteban, before we leave,
yes,
I would like to say to you and your team and your members that I, in fact, read every comment that comes into the chat, every single one, in as close to time sequence that they arrive as possible. And the insult that we don't read and don't care is an unnecessary insult. Secondly, with regards to only Ryan speaking, this team talks a great deal very carefully prior to these meetings, and we make an active decision that all of our input gets onto the table. We talk about things, and then Ryan speaks for us. It's not because I or Judy or Brooke or any other members of this team are indifferent.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you going through the comments and all the material that goes into the chat, which is quite an amount.
Although it would be nice if they were actually addressed in the bargaining session. I don't think reading does much for us.
Yeah, if I could just echo what Dr. Duncan said, no, I haven't said a lot in bargaining lately, and I don't want that to be interpreted as me not concerned or not listening. We hear what you're describing and what you're going through, and just understand, as Dr. Duncan pointed out, Ryan is speaking on behalf of the university. We're part of the team, but we're going to defer to Ryan in conversation here on the bargaining session.
Understood. Ryan, when you and Brent want to talk, you mentioned talking. It's possible that when I leave, this meeting will collapse.
That's okay. I'll just give him a ring.
Okay.
It's no problem. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Keep us posted, please, on dates. Keep us posted on the pace. We can solve this even before the 28th. We can solve it pretty quickly. Okay?
Okay. Thanks, Esteban.
See you next time. Everyone else, I'll meet you in the debrief.